Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jana Gerber. I am a principal for the North American Sustainability Business at Schneider Electric. Today, we will be discussing Net Zero 2050, a roadmap to realizing decarbonization of buildings. Joining me today is Lisa Brylowski, Global ESG Coordinator and Vice President of Business Operations for Brookfield Property Group. Hi, Lisa. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Hi, Jenna. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you, everyone, for joining us.
So to begin, it's clear that we are at a critical juncture with climate change. The number of natural disasters and costs associated with events is increasing, leading to lives, property, and business lost. We know that buildings are a major contributor to climate change, accounting for 40% of greenhouse gas emissions. To combat this, over 120 countries have now committed to net zero 2050 targets, and many of those countries are providing stimulus funds to help reach that goal. Thankfully, digitalization of building systems, leading to the creation of what we at Schneider like to call the buildings of the future, allows us to help customers create buildings that are sustainable, resilient, hyper-efficient, and people-centric. Today, we are going to spend some time diving into the sustainability topic and identifying the stepping stones on the path to decarbonization, defining success, setting targets, deploying the program, and sustaining those results. So Lisa, in your role as the Global ESG Coordinator and Vice President of Business Operations at Brookfield, what are the biggest obstacles you face when determining the sustainability strategy for your business?
Well, Jenna, the main challenge that I am dealing with in my business is the size and scale of our operations. Just to throw some numbers at you, Brookfield Asset Management has over $625 billion of assets under management. Of that, 240 roughly pulls from real estate. So that's the scale that I'm working with. We're in 21 countries. We have over 10,000 properties spanning 10 plus property types. We respond to 7 different ESG frameworks. I have over 80 portfolio companies in my portfolio. So the diversity of assets under management is really the challenge that I deal with in my day-to-day. So my job is to make sure that each portfolio company or segment of our business is conducting their business affairs in line with Brookfield's ESG principles, making sure they're meeting mandatory reporting requirements, and most importantly, that they're using ESG to mitigate risk and to create value. So connecting strategy and implementation is really the secret to our success. It begins with tone from the top. So everyone is aware that ESG is a top priority for Brookfield. And frankly, with management support, the rest comes down to expertise and project management, which isn't to minimize the role that anyone plays in this. But we bring in partners like Schneider Electric that offer both expertise and most importantly, will get down and assist with driving the work forward based on our vision. So, frankly, from day one, Schneider Electric has differentiated itself by the degree to which it understands my portfolio, the goals at the top, and then how to execute those priorities throughout my portfolio. A couple of specific examples of the work that Schneider's done for us recently is that they're creating a ESG playbook or kind of rules of the game that we will distribute across our portfolio so that everyone knows from a technological and management operational standpoint what the business is supposed to do. And also we've put in your hands, that you'll be our global system of record. And really this all kind of relates to our commitment to net zero and the need for us to, frankly, get a handle on our GHG measurements and then execute our reduction plans.
That's a great segue to my next question for you, Lisa. And it's incredible the proactive and strategic approach that Brookfield is taking to your sustainability goals. For Schneider Electric, we've strived to be carbon neutral in our operations by 2025 and net zero by 2030. with a big piece of that being kind of the carbon offset element and how we utilize that to achieve our goals. So, and you mentioned a little bit, but maybe you could expand on how does Brookfield approach net zero versus carbon neutrality?
So look, Brookfield understands that asset owners and operators like ourselves can make an outsized contribution to the fight against climate change. Earlier this year, Brookfield joined the Net Zero Asset Managers Initiative, which means that we have pledged ourselves to be net zero by 2050 along a 1.5 degree warming scenario. 2050 is frankly a long ways away, so there are things that we can do right now to start executing on reductions. We know that right now we don't have the technology to truly get to net zero emissions without using offset credits or other means to get there. We accept this reality, and we're staying close to the market for carbon credits. We're looking at carbon pricing, all the background systems and frameworks and things that need to be in place for this to work on a global scale. And also, probably most importantly, we're working on determining an appropriate 2030 net zero goal, which we'll be able to share with the global community in the coming months. I can tell you that at a portfolio level, we're looking at each and every investment and asset and determining three things, basically. What we can improve at the property level to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So what are those low-hanging pieces of fruit that we can tune up, in partnerships with yourselves? If we can shift all or some of our traditional energy to renewable sources. And then third, bringing in that carbon offset piece to close the gap between what we can reduce and what we can't reduce at this point in time. So, that's the big picture. The other part is getting the numbers right? If you think about all the complex things that we do in real estate, something like measuring your energy use and calculating your GHGs should not be a problem. But, that's easy to say, but the reality is that it is rather complex. So at the manager level, we're making sure that we understand our full emissions profile. So that's scopes 1, 2, and 3, making sure we have the right collection methods in place. So here we're talking metering, direct feeds from utility providers. In absence of that, making sure we're working with our property managers and portfolio managers, getting those numbers in to Resource Advisor, and making sure we're aggregating and analyzing the data correctly. And overall, making sure we're being nimble to be able to shift from, maybe we're using the equity accounting method and we want to shift to control, making sure that we have all the background information to be able to support those, accounting changes that we might have to make. And this is all being supported by Schneider Electric. So I'm very happy to have your partnership and support in this, frankly, huge endeavor.
We are as well, for sure, with Brookfield and yourself, Lisa. So it's clear, that the net zero is definitely a goal, but obviously that roadmap we've talked about, it needs to really be in place to achieve that. And earlier you mentioned that connecting strategy to implementation has really been a secret to your success. So can you talk a little bit more about that roadmap and how that helps you navigate the transition from theoretical to practical, and then maybe a bit further about the role that EcoStruxure plays an enabler for achieving those outcomes?
Yeah, for sure. So look, it boils down to a few things. Determining the baseline, where you are today, where you have gaps in your information, where you have less transparency, figuring out how to close those gaps. Comparing yourself to yourself at any given point in the future, past, and projecting out where you want to be. Communicating what you're doing internally and externally. The investor community is just so hungry for information on performance that we need to be able to supply that information. And then just reiterating and replicating processes to enable our success. So, we've done a ton of work with Schneider Electric, and we just love your Resource Advisor tool, which I'm sure a lot of people know is your cloud-based sustainability data tracking and aggregation platform. We track over 800 data points within Resource Advisor. That's growing, I want to say daily, but for sure monthly. My dream and my vision is that this time next year, everything Brookfield owns in terms of real estate will be on Resource Advisor. We're almost there, we're working on a roadmap to get ourselves there, but it's fantastic and it's so exciting. You know, if you have full visibility into your financial performance, why should you not have full visibility into your sustainability performance? We're also executing, I want to call specific projects in various parts of our portfolio. One project here in Canada, I'm sitting in Brookfield Place, Toronto. It's one of the assets in scope for this metering project that we're doing. You know, Schneider Electric has been supporting us in terms of metering for over 20 years, but we recently underwent a software upgrade. So we just have more visibility, more connectivity. We're able to separate out tenant spaces from common area. So, you know, we have a further definition between the two, and we can account for such. So that's been tremendously successful. Another recent project that we executed was in New York City at our Brookfield Place, New York complex, where we connected river water chilled water plant after years of inactivity. And this is great because it expanded upon the building analytics and service work that you've already been doing for us at this asset, expanded it throughout the towers and the retail aspect of the complex. And this really gave us a full picture into our performance, centralized plant work, and all the complexities that run through EcoStruxure. So, you know, increasing visibility into the performance of our asset, certainly more energy efficient, and you know, we just thought this was a huge win. And you know, it was a pleasure working with you on this project.
That's incredible, and such a great example of the digitalization that can take place all the way from the portfolio level down into the asset across both of those very exciting projects that we've been able to work on together. So thank you for that. You mentioned earlier, you know, about reporting back out to your external stakeholders and really what that takes and what the expectations are on their side from the investors in the market. So can you talk a little bit about the frameworks and how you're structuring that back to the market?
Yeah, for sure. So the context here is that everyone wants reporting. Investors are demanding reporting. It's a big touch point in fundraising. The regulatory environment in which we operate, you know, demands disclosure, and for that you need data, right? So you know, no longer are qualitative assessments of what you've done and plan to do acceptable, right? You need to put some numbers behind your story. So what we've been doing is making sure that we have that property level data that can be verified to report out, but not just report out, actually to use that information to improve our asset performance. But reporting, you know, admittedly is a huge driver of why we do what we do. In terms of frameworks and what we respond to, we respond to GRES. So we respond to GRES for 8 different entities that comprise 72% of our AUM. 2 years ago, we were at 57%. This is only going to grow. We think GRES is tremendously helpful. You know, I've heard the complaint that, sure, it's very granular and it takes a lot of data and you know, spreadsheets, and it's a huge exercise in project management. You know what? It's all those things, but it's incredibly beneficial because it provides that comparability, right? You're compared to your peers, and sure, some people will dispute the peer group and such, but you also compare yourself to yourself, right? And for us, that's tremendously important. So GRES certainly is one of the most important frameworks that we respond to. I mentioned the Net Zero Asset Managers Initiative, so there are reporting requirements that come along with that. We are signatories to the TCFD, so we are looking at including climate-related financial disclosures in our full year 2022 report. We respond to the UNPRI. We use SASB to inform a number of our different reporting touch points, and also GRI standards, of course. So what we're finding over the years is, you know, all these frameworks seem to be kind of coalescing around the same types of data, but they're used for different purposes. So if you have that data, you can slice and dice and apply it however you need to. But you got to get that data, and it's no longer acceptable to say, oh, we're a small shop and we don't have this, or you know, like, just I think leadership, project management, and execution, those are the keys to success.
So Lisa, you know, and taking that a little bit further, you know, we've talked about really kind of that data management and reporting frameworks at the portfolio level, but in thinking about the assets and buildings, do you find there are roadblocks and opportunities along with pursuing green building certifications as well?
Yeah, so in terms of green building certifications, among premier assets and asset owners, green buildings are just expected nowadays, particularly with office, but increasingly so across asset classes, major asset classes. You need to develop to a LEED standard, whether it's platinum or gold, pick your color. But in addition to development, you need to seek certifications for existing assets as well, right? And making the necessary capital improvements to get yourself there. So from an owner's perspective, this needs planning for certifications, right? It's a multi-year process. So when you start, you need strategic internal alignment. You need a plan and a partner like Schneider Electric to assist with the data and other needs that come with, building a green asset. From our experience, green buildings typically command higher rents and fetch higher asset sales value. The challenge from an owner's perspective is time horizons, right, and return expectations. So with a longer hold period, you have more runway to make improvements. But with a shorter time period or a shorter hold period, let's say with an opportunistic asset, you have less time for making the sustainability improvements that you might want to make or might need to make to seek a certification. But frankly, the way I see it, a shorter time period or a shorter hold period is no excuse for not making those improvements. So for us, this starts in due diligence where we identify risks but opportunities. Hopefully, the target acquiree company will have something off the shelf that we can just pick up and execute on, but oftentimes that's not the case. So identifying those opportunities, including them in business plans and capital expenditure plans, and then executing them and just staying true to your plan and reporting on your progress at regular intervals really is where we see green certifications and how to manage them in our portfolio.
So yeah, the criticality and value that comes from that green building certification is super important. Thank you for reinforcing that. And, I think it also goes back to some of the previous conversation around, just the cumbersome nature of that reporting and just all the manual output, and how do we make that easier for buildings and for customers and businesses to really get that reporting done right and quickly so that the timelines and the horizons can shorten. We're trying to help our customers ease this struggle, working with organizations like the GBCI to automate that reporting to lead to a tie-in to the reporting systems that are already going to be put in the building. So, it's another benefit and advancement as these buildings become more digitalized moving forward. So based on our conversation today, it's clear that a defined roadmap is needed to achieve net zero targets. Schneider Electric is working with our customers around the world, like Brookfield, to make sure that roadmap is in place, that the strategy is well defined, attainable targets are set, working backwards with the end in mind. For building owners, developers, and investors seeking to meet sustainability targets, Schneider Electric offers a comprehensive step-by-step approach to take you from strategy and implementation to operation, optimization, and green building certification to deliver net zero buildings. With our services, software, and solutions, you can increase your building valuation and exceed consumer expectations, while also meeting net zero 2050 targets and contributing to a better environment for us all. I want to thank you all for your time today and joining us, and Lisa for your and Brookfield's contribution to a greener future. Thank you to our viewers, and please be sure to check out our Buildings of the Future in the Innovation Hub, where we have dedicated booths to solutions for sustainability, resiliency, hyper-efficiency, and people centricity. Thank you again.